Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. The topic that we'll be talking about today is cultural diversity. So, before we go deep into the video, let me explain to you guys what is cultural diversity. Cultural diversity is an existence of variety of cultural groups within society. Cultural group can share different characteristics like religion, age, gender, and many. A country culture that has been identified is a key environmental characteristic that underlies systematic difference in behavior. Ignoring cultural difference between countries has been one of the reasons why business fail. So in this video, we will be talking about why Starbucks failed in Australia and how they rejoining in the market.
Okay, so in 2008, Starbucks has to close most of their stores in Australia. Why this happened? It's because number one, Starbucks launched their brand too rapidly that it didn't give Australian consumers time to develop their brand into their lifestyle. Second, it's because Starbucks moved their store into place certain areas that coffee is too much available for them, so they didn't have a taste to need or want to taste Starbucks. That is why Starbucks failed to break Australian market.
Now we move on to the impact of Starbucks' failure in adapting the Australian culture. Firstly, for the first 7 years of operating, Starbucks has lost a total of $105 million. Not just that, in 2007, they also hanging on by thread by taking loans from the United States with a total of $54 million in loans. In 2008, Starbucks had shut down a total of 61 from 87 stores they have in Australia due to the financial crisis. So, when a large number of Best Oil were shut down in Australia, Australian consumers actually didn't really care about it. It is because Australia are spoiled for a lot of choice when it comes to the coffee.
Now, I would like to explain about the step that Starbucks in Australia takes to overcome their problem in penetrate the market. Starbucks start to take a different approach to enter the market in Australia, which is they start to focus on the tourists in that country since Australia is well known as one of the bigger tourist destinations in the world. There are a lot of US and Chinese tourists there. And we also know that in their country, Starbucks are very popular and successful. This gives Starbucks a lot of sense to build again and came out as a giant coffee shop that are very popular among the tourists that visiting the popular vacation destination in Australia. They believe that tourists will find something similar to them in other countries. Because of that, now Starbucks has opened again in 39 locations all over Australia.
From the Starbucks case in Australia, we have learned that getting to know a culture is very important before we venture into a business in a certain country, because we are expanding our business into a market with a different set of cultures. Any barriers that could cause failures to the business should be handled with the right approach. In this case, the coffee and cafe culture in Australia is very different compared to the ones in America. Australians prefer their coffee to be less sugary, such as lattes and flat whites. Meanwhile, Americans prefer sugary coffee. Starbucks realized that their coffee is not up to par with the Australian local taste. Therefore, they switched the target market to the tourists in Australia instead. They did realize this problem a little bit too late, which is after they had to close a bunch of outlets, but they managed to go back into the market with a different marketing strategy. Ignoring cultural differences may cause business failures. This was what happened to Starbucks Australia. In conclusion, to avoid losing locals' interest and making a huge loss, companies should first do a research on consumer behavior, because cultural differences definitely affect the marketing mix, which is why it should be taken seriously.